All right, guys, welcome to the Bone Maniac podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Kelderman.
And I'm the Maniac, and here, guys, we're going to bring you from field to audio our firsthand experiences, not only with our partners, but just everyday life that we're going to be doing out here hunting.
Today's episode is brought to you by Huntworth Apparel. You can find them on social media and at huntworthgear.com.
Hey, guys, Maniac here. We're here with Neal, the owner and founder of Huntworth Camo. Neal, it's a pleasure to have you on today.
Oh, same here. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's just get down to the nitty-gritty of Huntworth. You know, what is it about that you just, you were just there engineering some of the finest garments that I've had on my back out in, the lower 48, pretty much every state I've utilized your product in. And the origin, I have yet to ask you, how did Huntworth come about?
As in any story in life, it has lots of twists and turns to it. So my background actually was in winter gloves. And I'm embarrassed to say how long ago it was. I'm 58 now, so almost 40 years. My origins were in winter gloves. And I literally stumbled into hunting by accident. I had customers asking me if we could do the same winter gloves in camo. And that's how we started making camo gloves. And when I left my family's business to start my own business, I was really interested in the hunting side of the business because there was such enormous room for innovation. Hunters really appreciate and need a good quality product and at a reasonable price. I mean, how do I put it? Every hunter isn't a dentist. And
that is true.
Yeah. And although to all the dentists out there, I appreciate you buying my product. It really intrigued me. And, a lot of, any industry, innovation drives change and new products. I mean, look at Tesla, for instance. I mean, they totally changed the car business. So I was really interested in product innovation. And I really felt hunting, there was far more opportunity. And that's how I got into the hunting business when I started my own operation. And the other thing that really intrigued me was, I knew how to bring my supply chain to be a much more integrated setup. So when you're buying from us, there's not so many middlemen involved. In fact, really, I'm dealing right at the factory level and with the material suppliers. So I've been able to cut out an enormous amount of overhead and really give a hunter, a much better value on the product than they were used to in the past. So those were the reasons I ended up getting into hunting. And certainly I met really a lot of very interesting and fine people along the way who've given me great feedback. And, we've really developed a phenomenal feedback network talking to our pro staff people, obviously like you, Shane, and our customers, and really getting out in the field. And being in Pennsylvania, I'm surrounded with a lot of hardcore hunters, and people who work for me who are very into hunting. So it's given us a great opportunity to continue to refine and address what hunters need.
Well, and you make a very good point there, Neal, is not all of us are dentists. We don't have, we weren't born with, so to speak, a silver spoon in our mouth. So the weekend warrior hunter, the weekend guy that's out there working 9 to 5, you've made it where you put your innovation in place. And now that you've cut out all the middleman with their hands out, you've been able to give hunters a really good quality product for a lot less money. And I'm going to tell you, I appreciate it. I know the folks that we distribute to throughout the hunting industry and talk with, I know they appreciate it as well, because it's just phenomenal that you're able to do that, you know, and people people that give us feedback, you know, of their success stories, like, wow, this is crazy. We can buy a whole setup for half the price as we can in competitors, you know.
Well, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, so I'm 22 years old and still in college, and tell you what, you're not going to catch me buying a full set of what most clothing is going for now. So it's definitely refreshing to see that.
I mean,
Oh, whatever. You're rich, Ethan.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely think that some of the clothing out there has been, you know, vastly overpriced. And I mean, again, I've been traveling throughout, you know, the world, sourcing basically since I graduated college. I have the rare distinction of spending a night in a hospital in Hong Kong because I was so dehydrated. And it was an interesting story. The nun who was taking care of me was there during the Japanese occupation, so she was certainly a very interesting lady to talk to. And they had a palm read over my bed because it was a Catholic hospital. I didn't have the heart to tell the nun I was Jewish. So, how do I put it? I've spent an enormous amount of time traveling all over the place, really developing a strong production and material sourcing network, you know, and developing my own sourcing team and product inspection team to really make sure we're making great product at a very fair price. And I think that's what it's all about. I mean, you know, people expect and should demand, you know, a strong value these days. I mean, you know, we're working harder for our money, particularly now, than we ever did.
You know, it's funny that you said that, because I was talking to my dad just the other day. And of course, you know, we came in to visit back east, and I was talking to Dad, and he goes, Shane, I work harder now at 68 years old. He's not retired yet. At 68 years old than I did in 1982 when you were just a young one. And I'm thinking, well, why is that? He said, life was much simpler back then. And the cost of things have not inflated to what they are now. And I stopped and I think about it. I did a little research on that from like 1982 till now. And, yeah, I think things are crazy. You know, it used to be where it just wasn't inflated as much as it is now. And does the production cost as much? I mean, or whatever. You know, I don't know. I don't have all the answers for that. I'm not an economic scholar by any means, but I hear that from folks that are around that age, you know, from 60 to 70, that say, I'm not quite retired yet. You know, I got to work harder now than I ever have just to make things work.
I also think that people are demanding a lot more out of their hunting clothing today than they have in the past. I mean, you know, to me, you know, I think it's an exciting time in our industry because, you know, people demand a windproof garment. They demand a waterproof garment. They want something that's warm without bulky. They want something comfortable, easy to use, and quiet. And, you know, the interesting thing is all these are trade-offs. You know, I think we're evolving better and better to find ways of incorporating this in. You know, for instance, sound control, you know, is basically a combination of fabrics and brushing. But, you know, we're developing more and more materials that are inherently quiet, that you don't necessarily have to brush, and that can be made more durable. You know, windproof is really dictated by the type of films you use. But again, you know, we're working to develop quieter films so that you can have a windproof or waterproof garment that can also be very quiet. And, you know, again, I mean, how do I put it? I'm telling all of our Huntworth customers out there and future customers, we're working on some really, really cool new stuff for the future on lining technology. You know, I mean, I consider this the holy grail. You know, a warm garment that is extremely light and packable. I mean, I'm talking like a super warm garment. And I think there's, in the linings in particular, there's a lot of really new technologies that we're working very aggressively on. You know, I mean, how do I put it? One of my sourcing people is an engineer.
Well, right.
You know, and I think that's the kind of the interesting thing these days is you got to almost think like an engineer. You know, when you're sourcing your different types of materials, because there's so much new stuff and new technologies. I mean, my son's involved in a engineer, or I should say, a science project on a new computer technology that uses light waves. Which, when he talks to me about it, I have no idea what he's talking about, but I'm able to nod my head. And, I mean, that's the exciting thing these days is there's so much new technologies that we can use to make really exciting new garments at you know, reasonable prices. You know, I mean, how do I put it? Anybody can make a really warm, windproof garment to sell for $600, but my
exactly.
objective is to make a very warm, windproof garment that you can sell for $200. And, you know,
yeah,
really,
I'm buying
technology. You know, look, when I was a kid, I remember very few cars had electric windows. Now all of them have electric windows, and that's the real thing is bringing the technology to an affordable price. And so I think that's what's really exciting these days is some great technologies and developing garments that we can make them at a reasonable price. Is just, I mean, how do I put it? It gets me up every morning with a smile on my face, you know?
Well, you're absolutely right, and I think that's the key word that you're emphasizing is you brought Huntworth, you know, to the origin to hunters because there's so much fascinating innovation out there, you know, because you know hunters are hunting multiple species, and you're catering to every one of them by you know, whether we're a whitetail hunter, elk, mule deer, bighorn sheep, you know, in the Brooks Range of Alaska, you know, muskoxen in the Arctic, you know, it doesn't really matter. The technology that you're able to achieve through all this innovation is, I mean, it's like you just said, you're up, it's what gets you up every morning because there's something new, exciting. Like, you know, we're going up against, you know, a Cerverday's ear, you know, and if we make one little sound, you know, like they can catch us at 20 yards away, you know. So this type of product is it's very important to hunters, you know, and by you putting in the research and development and bringing it to people, that's really easy on the purse, man. That's exciting news.
Well, and I think in general, hunting is really in an exciting place right now. Instead of it being on decline like it was the last couple of years, you know, people discovered being outside again. I mean, I think the great thing about being imprisoned in your house, you know, is it gets you outside again. And people are really appreciating what it's like to be in the woods and reconnecting with nature and, you know, being able to harvest their own meat and, you know, bonding with their family. You know, I think we've almost gone from a society where we've had too many activities to one where we can really enjoy being with our family again. And, you know, So there's a lot. I mean, I think that there's a lot of new hunters that really are going to appreciate affordable innovation, that they can really go out there and again with their family. I mean,
100%. And
yeah, I mean, I think the greatest thing about hunting right now is, there's no better sport to really reconnect with your family. And I know my kids are growing up too fast, so I'm really taking advantage of this opportunity to be out there with them outside.
100%, 100%. And just like you were saying as well, is the new hunters that's coming out of like, hey, what can I do from home? It's a shame that we've all went through this pandemic, but it really has pushed people to say, hey, I want to be outside. It's the guys that are beginners and the guys that haven't hunted in a long time. They're out there doing some research and they're like, wow, I may be laid off work, but I'm able to afford Huntworth, and it's a great product. It's got everything I'm looking for. And now that they're out there hunting again, they could have had a 10-year delay because of work. They're stuck in the office or whatever. And it's just, you're right. There's nothing more that needs to be said. It's the perfect bonding experience for family and being one-on-one with nature out there. And that's, I don't care who you are. If that's not respectable, I don't know. We're just going to have to agree to disagree, I guess.
Yeah, and like I even notice in my age category, there's a lot of people, maybe more so than previous, that are maybe not hunting or maybe not always in the outdoors, but the thoughts there and the wheels are turning and, is there something more than maybe going out to the bars every weekend or something? Like this kind of gets old, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen in the future with the next generation. I mean, I know they say hunting numbers are constantly going down, and that might be true, but at least in my personal experience, I think the wheels are definitely turning in certain age groups, as far as re-engaging with the outdoors and stuff like that.
And I also just I also just think there's, in general, this kind of move to go back to nature, to know where you're getting your food from, and, to be able to spend quality time with your family. I mean, things just move too quick. And what I find interesting is I've heard from a lot of people that, like they're taking their wife or fiance or girlfriend in the woods with them for the first time. And so, one wouldn't necessarily think on going on a date is to go hunting. And, certainly becoming a more common thing today.
Well, and even the rise of women in the outdoors, and I feel like that's definitely on the up. Just women being involved in the outdoors. If we're talking, women's clothing, stuff like that.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
sure. And there's a lack of that.
Well, I mean, I do think that it's just interesting to me in general how many women are going with their significant others into the woods and really having a great experience and finding a rewarding experience, and also, appreciating the quality time and finding that it's something that is not only enjoyable but not like overwhelming. It isn't as complicated as it sounds. And I know for us, I mean, given the enormous success of our Tarnan pattern, that we are coming out for next season with the ladies line, and it's interesting how many people in our area, Western Pennsylvania, how many women hunters we've been able to work with to really, develop new products and, get some great feedback. And again, I mean, how do I put it? When I started my business, one of my first hires was a designer. And, now we have 4 full-time designers. I mean, getting the product right. particularly for hunting, is a challenging thing. I mean, one of the things I'll say in general is that I really take pride in with our product, whether you buy our hunting gloves, hats, or clothing, our fit is like my number one priority, and I constantly get feedback how you put on our product and how wonderful it fits and feels. And I think, again, I mean, unfortunately, not everybody's an Olympian, including me. So, I mean, I'm not going to talk about my waistband, my waistband, but not everybody is that svelte person who can fit into an athletic fit. And we really try to design our product for a normal person, and something that you could feel very comfortable in wearing. And we spend a lot of time making sure our sizes are true. I mean, I cannot tell you how many pants we sell because it's so hard to get a good fitting pair of pants, or how many people buy our gloves and come back and this is like the first pair of gloves I can get my hands into, and I still have lots of dexterity. So, I think this is an example of how the market has been underserved. I mean, I hate to say it, I like to go take a walk, but I'm not going to go climb Pikes Peak. And we need clothing for every type of consumer in this industry. And I think there's been too much focus on this kind of really tight athletic fit that most people just can't fit into comfortably.
I second that. I was told I was built like a pipe. So, I mean, it's the product that's out there is like everything you see anymore. I don't know if it's the trend or fashion, but I'll tell you right now, 15 million hunters are not out there pounding the gym every day, getting chiseled and having that A-frame package. So, the one thing that I can definitely say about with Huntworth is it is comfortable. It is 100% comfortable. So, just among the many other things, but the comfort level that I have, whether I'm back east, in the Rockies or in the Midwest, I'm comfortable no matter what I'm doing. And I think you guys have nailed it, Neal, with getting the feedback that you need. It's just on point. I mean, and I think anybody that's out there definitely needs to give the product a try, and you'll see for yourself. It's definitely worth investing in.
Comfort. Everybody should. When you buy clothes, they should really feel comfortable. They shouldn't be. They shouldn't fit wrong. How do I put it? The clothing should be made around you, not the other way around. The
other thing about that is like, if it doesn't fit right, then you start losing those other things like your scent control, like your warmth. So, 100%. It's important in a couple facets there.
Yeah, because then you're too constricted. If it's too tight, you're constricted. You can't pull, back your bow if you're a trad shooter or a compound or whatever, or even being constricted trying to raise your rifle or whatever, or if it's too tight or whatever, blocky, your glands start to sweat, and the next thing you know, it's like, oh wow, what's going on here? Of course, there's other precautions to go through with scent control. Going into the woods not overly dressed and not underly dressed either. But that's just common sense as a hunter. But definitely the comfort level plays a big part in that. For functionability, I should say.
No, I agree. And, again, climbing a tree stand or walking into the woods, I mean, you got to have clothing that's going to work with you. It's not going to overheat you, but it's going to keep you warm when you're sitting outside. I mean, I don't know what the weather is where you are, but, I mean, here in Pittsburgh today, my God, it's like 20 degrees. So, I mean, you got to be able to adapt. 20 degrees is cold when you're sitting on the tree stand, but you got to get to this tree stand, and you don't want to overheat getting there. So I definitely feel, again, your clothing needs to work with you.
That's the
Right.
double-edged sword when it comes to the whitetail woods. I know for me, it's, what can I wear like that I'm not going to be dripping sweat by the time I run this climber stand 20 foot up this tree, and then. It doesn't matter how warm it is because once you sweated, that's all just going to freeze. So, but I also have to be able to sit in something for a couple hours or more and not get cold, but not sweat on the way in. So, it's finding that middle ground that's definitely got to be done.
And I think, so talking about, again, being in the woods and again, blending in, I mean, camo technology is also really going in a lot of interesting directions today. And again, I have a graphic designer working for me because, again, the camo world is evolving in really some exciting ways. I mean, instead of just trying to, be the perfect tree and blending in, there's a lot of these new kind of technical patterns that create visual noise. And I mean, I can tell you our new Tarnin pattern, really, I mean, it's the perfect thing because it's a technical pattern using natural elements. And so, it creates the visual noise in a natural way. And, it's the right blends of colors, particularly for how deer see the woods versus a human does. And I think this is, I cannot tell you how many retailers are picking it up. And our first year out with it, the excitement that consumers have about it. And really, I think the most exciting thing about it is its versatility. That works in so many markets. So I'm very excited about it, and
So
feedback.
If you, which I don't know if you said you had a graphic designer, but would you want to get into a little bit the specifics of what's going on there with, rather than blending in, it's more of, I guess, visual noise. I mean, do you know anything about that a little more? You'd want to explain to people that like me who have no idea?
I mean,
Well, yeah, that's a good point. And that's a good point. I don't mean to interrupt, but that's a very good point. Is this is the new Tarnin camo with Huntworth, and just so everybody is listening, so it's like the hunter versus the animal, and this is camouflage versus concealment, and that's that Tarnin organic camo that's breaking up that 3D image. And so I guess that's what you're asking there as far as that's concerned, right? Right, Ethan? That's what you're thinking?
Yeah, just like the technical, like what's going on there technically with that camo versus, your tree leaf patterns that you're maybe used to seeing.
Well, I mean, look, I can get into the woods and talk about fractals and all that, but really, not to kill an ant with a sledgehammer here.
Sure.
Tree pattern is the idea is to fool the animal,
Yep.
They
right. Absolutely.
Trees, and the idea is, 3 dimensions, depth, and, picking the right pieces to put into the pattern, leaves and acorns and the types of trees you pick. And I mean, there's a lot of people that is their preferred mode, and certainly it's been around for a long time. Kind of the new trend, and this is represented both in our disruption and our Tarnin pattern, is this idea of visual noise, where the animal doesn't see anything to focus on. So it is viewing it as just, how do I put it? When you walk in the woods, you're not, you're not focused on everything around you. So if something's visual noise, you're just not going to focus on it. And these type of patterns, so like our disruptions, a more, we use digits in there, little squares in different shapes to create the visual noise. And it's, again, you create that randomness by what they call fractals, which is a mathematical concept. Where our tarnin, we're creating that visual noise, and again, that randomness of the fractals by using natural pieces, using barks and rocks to create that same type of randomness. You're using a natural pattern, and you're creating that visual noise using mathematics and randomness. So,
right.
It's a new way of approaching it. I think it's a very interesting way. It's very cool. The science behind it. I mean, it's kind of a very math-based type of concept. And I mean, that concept of fractals actually has been around for quite a while. The science, and again, I think it really creates a phenomenal way for concealment. And again, it gives hunters new ways of approaching camouflage and something different to try. I mean, I think part of the fun of hunting is trying new things and new concepts to see if you can improve how well you do. And I think this is a perfect example. And I'm not going to say, there's definitely people who are hardcore tree hunters. There's people who are really into this type of new technology, that creates visual noise. And, what I would encourage everybody to do is try something new, and again, I mean, a great time in the industry. So many people are looking to get involved. We want to give them, options that they feel most comfortable with.
Well, yeah, and I know
absolutely.
Any whitetail hunter who's hunted consistently has had that situation where a deer, it just pegs you, and you feel like you didn't move, you didn't do anything, with some of those traditional camos. So I'm curious, what maybe difference in experience you'd have there, just because, sometimes it's just like, wow, I know I did not move, and maybe you're throwing a big shadow or something, but
right.
I know.
Well, that's that whole 3D shape out there. The way the sensors of the eyes of the Cervidae sees that depth perception. They're able to, like, oh, that's an unfamiliar object to what I normally see. So having this tarnin camo that blends in and breaks up that image, it just makes things fluent. Like, they can just scan the area and, like, oh, that doesn't look like a human, or something like that. Or it doesn't look like a blob that they normally don't see in their bedroom, and I think that's a technology that, people start to see, when they start studying the decibels of what, Cervidae can hear and see and things like that. And that's where Neal's making a very manifesting point, is the innovation that you guys are bringing to the table at Huntworth is, I'm loving it. I mean, I don't know, my little brain can't comprehend some of this stuff, but it's pretty awesome that I'm able to utilize these. Now, like, one thing I would want to reiterate is like, when you're saying like my style of hunting is different than 15 other million people, but you're having something like, if you want the hidden pattern or the disruption or the tarnin camo or the snow camo, like, there's something out there. It's like, this may work for me, but it's only working for my style of hunting. So you have something for everyone out there. Like, if you want that more advanced type of hunting, then tarnin's what you need. So, if you like the sticks and twigs for tree stand hunting, then you have the hidden pattern and stuff like that. So, it's just like you say, Neal, it's really school to conceptualize all these type of. You have a lot to pick from.
Well, and
as far as that's concerned,
would I be correct in saying that this more digital 3D breakup type camo would be, I don't know, more versatile based on, say you are hunting out west and you're on the ground in the sagebrush or rocks, whatever. That's going to be more versatile, right, than some of those more traditional patterns.
Oh, absolutely. Because
yeah.
And that's the whole idea of the technology, is that it's creating that visual noise, and so versus trying to blend in against the tree, so yeah, it has a lot more flexibility to it for sure.
And that's the other thing, blending in against a tree, that color might blend in at 4 o'clock, but at 6 o'clock it might be a totally different color, so that wouldn't always work either.
I don't disagree with that statement.
Yeah. Well, with the type of concealment that we're talking about here, like this is something that you're working on technology 24/7. It sounds like.
Oh, this is how do I put it? This is what drives our industry. You always got to be motivated to change, and you really got to look at all aspects of product, the hunt, to really, keep on maximizing the experience. How I put it, I want people out there who are warm, comfortable, and succeeding on their hunt. Because if they're wearing my product and that happens, they're going to want to hunt more, which is great for the industry. They're going to want to buy more stuff. So, I think we need to continually work on that. Every sport out there is constantly evolving and trying to do a better job, and make it a more interesting sport. And how do I put the sports that don't keep up with change, basically disappear.
Well, yeah, and like I know of a ton of examples if we're talking in the hunting industry where a company had something awesome going and they quit innovating, and here we are 5 years down the road, and what they had was obsolete, even though 5 years ago that was I loved it, right? So
yeah, I keep
100%.
I keep a notepad next to my bed, so if I have a new idea or something pops into my head,
an epiphany in the middle of the night.
Write it down. But I agree. Look, I think this is what makes hunting exciting for people, is new things that they can try out, and it's going to improve their experience, and keep on letting them do better, and continue to want to return and go hunting. The sheer number of hunters out there is still a very large amount of people. And we want to make it easier and more accessible for more people to go hunting. And, for experienced hunters, we want to give them the opportunities to do more. And I think that's what's great about, about this sport. And, the other thing is, a lot of people harvest the meat, and, it's a great way of getting a lot of steaks and hamburgers,
Yeah, that's true.
Well, and I think it's an important thing. This idea of really getting back to where you get your food. I think that's a huge trend across everybody.
Yeah, and I think like in my circles, especially, I've noticed that maybe they're not as much into the hunting side of things, but they're into the food side of things, and so that's an in, right? And that creates, I don't know, it's just a deeper connection.
And I think no matter
100%.
That is true today. I don't care if you hunt or don't hunt. Everybody really wants to connect with where they're getting their food, and and not just grown in some far off place that they have no idea where it came from. So I think that's a good thing.
100%.
And I mean, I also think that's what's great about hunting is, it gives you a chance to get your own food, and how do I put it? Do something good. I mean, know that you're getting where you're getting your food, and how do I put it? In many places, if there's not hunters out there hunting, I mean, we're going to get overrun by deer, which is, I think, the other thing that's going on these days.
Well, yeah, there's a whole nother conversation there with, a hunter's responsibility as far as the environment goes and their impact,
Where I live, we're paying hunters to come in to the neighborhood to go hunting because there's so many deer. So to me, proper management of the deer is a very important thing.
Well, yeah, even in like California, you see, right? They have too many mountain lions, but they don't want people hunting them for whatever reason, and so their taxpayer dollars go to hire people to hunt them, which makes a whole lot of sense. But yeah, that shows the role that hunters play.
It's been like that for the past 10 years for California. California is just something completely. We could sit here and talk about that state for several weeks.
Yeah,
and still scratch our heads.
Yes, sir.
And that's the thing about with a hunter is like a hunter is a person that pays for like 90% of the cost of for conservation, and like they hardly ever get any credit for it as a hunter. Just a food for thought for folks out there. Like hunters manage, hunters pay for conservation. So everything that hunters buy goes back to the conservation of management. And people don't realize that. Especially, it's been in our DNA since, the time of man. It's like, we were hunters and gatherers. It shouldn't change the fact of who we are. I think a lot of people fail to realize that. It's in our DNA to do this, so if the animals are there for us to harvest in the field to table movement, I love the organic practices of that. And I would much rather go out and hunt for a good elk steak than I would to go to the market and buy something that was just pumped through a bunch of non-organic substance, just to be raised in a little cubicle pen. To me, that's not ethical. You know what I mean? But
to say that it's in our DNA is almost an understatement.
Yeah.
I don't know any kid that doesn't want to make some kind of gun out of sticks or something when they're a little kid.
Yeah.
I think that is a real core of who we are. Because
100%, well said.
If we didn't evolve to be able to hunt, we just wouldn't have survived. It's kind of
right.
Boils down to that, and frankly, I think one of the things that people who don't hunt have to appreciate is if you let the deer get out of control, then they're going to bring in other animals that you should be a whole lot more worried about.
Well, it's
100%.
It's interesting how I feel like in the last 20 years it's kind of almost come full circle. You have like an anti-hunting movement, but then it's almost like the hunting movement has joined with, say, like the vegan organic or not vegan, the like organic movement of like, we want to know where our food comes from. Well, so do we. We might be kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum, but all of a sudden we agree on this.
Well, and I think that I think people would find that hunters have more in common with them if they just spend the time to talk about it. Because I think hunting is doing a phenomenal job for conservation, keeping, more dangerous animals from coming into their neighborhoods. If there's a glut of deer, keeping ticks away, things like that. And,
yeah.
I think you serve a common purpose.
Yeah, and I don't want to get off on too big of a tangent, but I had an experience last summer where, through whatever events that led, I ended up around a campfire with basically, I don't know, two hippies for lack of a better term. And once we got into conversations or whatever, and they were talking about the environment, this environment, that. And I'm like, I lay out, this is all the things the hunters do for the environment, and like, whether it's the money, whether it's, the taxpayer dollars off of those licenses, all the foundations that hunters donate to. And it was kind of interesting to see them we're like, oh, so we kind of want the same thing. We're just have different ways of getting there. It was interesting.
Oh, and hunters pay. You think about it. Hunters in Pennsylvania obviously pay licensing fees. Yet, so the state gets income. But, if you pick like another leisure industry, it seems like they get subsidized. When they built football stadiums in Pittsburgh, it was the taxpayers who paid for it.
Yeah.
So, I think we're doing our part. Really help the community.
Oh, 100%.
Bring money into the community. And I think that's, again, just another advantage of hunting. It's a sport that helps the community sustain itself and brings dollars in. Because, people are going to go and if you buy the license, usually where they're buying the license, they're going to go buy equipment. And I think that's a great thing. And I know in Pennsylvania it definitely brings in tourists. So I think that's another great thing.
Yeah,
oh,
for
I
sure.
People just don't realize, like, when that 90% of what hunters bring to the table, like, people just really don't realize that.
And
they really don't.
I think there's maybe a growing awareness, in the general public about what hunters do, with some more big name guys talking about it. But I still don't know, and maybe that's just because that's the circles I run around in. But it seems like the public perception is shifting maybe a little bit, and I think the extremes are growing. But I think there's also, people in the middle are definitely maybe changing their view on that and are seeing, what hunters do and what they do for the animals and what kind of the philosophy behind hunting is.
Well, my thing is it's not how big of an animal you get. It's about the experience. And, hopefully that experience isn't just you alone in the woods, but being with somebody that you really, you wouldn't have that time with. If you're back home, running your kids to 6 different activities.
Yeah.
And I think that's really where what hunting has to offer. You really have a chance to be out there. Whether it's your girlfriend or your kids, or your father, your grandfather, and do something that you can do together. And I think that's a marvelous thing.
You're not going to learn those type of things sitting on the couch playing video games. That's for sure.
We can eliminate video games by going hunting. There's a motto we should be proud of.
Well, yeah. Here, Neal, you said you weren't even a hunter, but here we've been talking about hunting for the last 15 minutes.
Yeah. But it's one of those.
In this day and age, that people really, get back out in the woods and have a chance to be with their families because, that's in the end what's important. And I think there's just way too many distractions. And, a lot of times I go with my older son just into the woods, and he and I take these long 3-hour hikes. And it really gives me a chance to learn a lot more about him and him being able to ask questions that don't involve a yes or no answer.
Right, exactly.
These are the moments I'm going to remember.
Yeah.
I think this is a wonderful opportunity that hunting gives people. And, I mean, how do I put it? What's great about hunting is you don't have to be some stellar athlete. And, just about everybody can do it. In fact, everybody can do it.
Everybody, yeah.
I think that's great. And, I obviously think that that's something that everybody should be interested in doing, or at least giving a try.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree. I agree. And you can, like, you see folks that have the motivation to get outdoors. And just take, for instance, like some of the Wounded Warrior projects, these folks are, come back from war and they have a missing limb or something, but they had that in them. Now they're back and they're out here doing it, whether they're some type of physical capability or handicap, they're out there doing it because they enjoy it, they love it. So it's for everyone, it's definitely, there's no reason for anyone to say, you can't enjoy it. But, and I'll take it just a step further. It's like, I have some folks that have trained with shooting archery, and they've never shot archery, and they're like, it's all about hunting. And I'm like, archery is very therapeutic, or shooting is very therapeutic. You don't have to be a hunter to enjoy what, the type of weaponry that we use in hunting. There's other sports. There's 3-gun, there's long-range shooting, there's archery, there's target. So there's a lot to go on with that hunting brings to the table, in that whole pie there, and it's just for education, I guess. One of the things I wanted to recap what you guys were just talking about is like the only way any of this is relevant is education. It's just educating people on what's out there, why we do it, why we enjoy it, why we love it, and why it's very beneficial and bonding for family or for couples or just siblings together. It's I have a lot of memories, growing up and hunting with granddad, uncles, siblings, and such. It's those type of memories that I don't have any memories of sitting on the couch playing video games.
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, I don't.
It's not there, man.
Can't remember any game I won on the TV or any show I watched, but I assure you, just about every memory I have either a gun or a bow in my hands. So.
Oh, that wasn't you on Family Feud?
No.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, for sure. Well, Neal, so I mean, we got off subject a little bit about talking, but that's good. This is what hunting's about, and this is what everything is about. Is like, it doesn't matter what we're talking about. We have memories that we can share, and this is something that's very monumental for people to understand. It's like, this is why we do it. Well, I mean, we can sit around a campfire and talk, and it's just about good camaraderie, and you're helping make that a living success because you're bringing innovation to the hunting industry. And boy, we sure appreciate that. And the things that you're looking forward doing is, I mean, you have pretty much everything known. You have a ton of gear, a ton of gloves for the men, but you did say you're getting some feedback from women. And I know my wife is super excited about wearing the women lines, and you have some kids lines and the lifestyle stuff. And let's just chat about that for a minute, because I think that's huge as far as being an advocate in the hunting industry, is because you have you're catering to everybody now that you have the women and the kids as well.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, again, I think it is a lifestyle hunting. I mean, we sell a lot of just camo accented fashion garments, and I'm just amazed how big that business is. And I do think it's, I think hunting is part of people's, how do I put it? Their culture, their part of their identity. And I think it stands for a lot of very positive things like family. And I'm excited to see that more women are getting involved. And again, I think with what's happened with COVID, it's given a lot of women a chance to go out hunting, and a lot of kids who normally, let's say, would have been too busy with activities. No, I mean, trust me, there's times in my life where I feel like I'm nothing more than a taxi driver around activities. So I think it's great to see some of these things slow down. You know, and I think that, you know, it's good that kids are involved in activities, but, you know, how do I put it? The number of kids that are going to become professional hockey players by doing hockey as an activity is very few. And I think that we... everybody gets so wound up about these type of things, they forget just the kind of one-on-one time, and you know the time to just turn it off for a little bit. And I think that's what again is what makes hunting such an exciting thing. But yeah, I mean we're seeing a lot more interest from women, and a lot more women hunters are really are demanding better product. And obviously product that's designed to fit them. And I mean, I think the kind of the age where kind of pink accented product with such a rage is over. They want to obviously they lots of women who really know what they're doing. And I mean, I think there's probably lots of women who are teaching their boyfriends how to go hunt now.
I was gonna say that there's some killers out there for sure. Shane's wife's a killer, I saw.
So, I mean, I think that's one of the interesting, changes as well. Is that I think a lot more women are very serious about the sport and probably teach their boyfriends a lot about hunting and teach, and get their kids out hunting with them. So, I definitely think that's another huge change that's going on.
Oh, absolutely, and it's that whole movement of I think we really need to, as a family of conservationists and hunters and fishermen and all the above, anybody that fits into that pie, is capitalize off of the opportunity that they were giving. I mean, yes, the pandemic thing was definitely mind blowing, but hey, let's look at the positive side. Look how many people that are brought together in the hunting industry. Now let's just keep that movement going, and there's no better way. Like you don't need to go out and invest $400 on a. Well, I don't even know if Game Boy's around. I tell you how much I know about these technology things, but it's like you can go out and buy a good startup kit, for your kids to get involved with archery and in the hunting clothes and stuff like that. It's worth the investment, and it's going to be there for, if you have, a football team like I have, then we just pass down the products, to the next kid in line. So I think it's now the time to like really push the movement, for hunters. Like, hey, here we're in that mindset. Let's not get lost again, because I think for the longest time in the early 2000s, all the way to 2000, in the early teens of 2000s, like hunters were lost. They were just consumed in the whole technology movement of not really teaching their kids like the core things. I mean, I may be a little bit biased about that, but I felt that having our kids learn these type of things is like it's just amazing to sit back and you hear other folks say, "Man, I got a little short story." So I took Odin with my uncle, and my dad, and Odin and I was in the cabin. He's like, Pappy John's here. So Odin goes running out to see my dad, and he couldn't find him. Well, he went around the back of the cabin, and so here's Odin, couldn't find him, and then all of a sudden he starts tracking him in the snow. You know what I mean? It's those little type of things, and my uncle was looking like, man, you are teaching those kids right, because he initially, as soon as he figured out he couldn't see where he is, he started following his footprints of knowing where he is, and I was like, well, if he didn't learn those type of things from me, I'd be disappointed as a parent, because it's just out of the box type of thinking that I mean, most of these kids wouldn't know. I mean, like a kid's 7 years old and he's tracking animals and things like this. And I know most people say, well, how's that relevant? Well, it was relevant right there. What if something happened, like, to his granddad and he couldn't find him? Well, he was able to find him if something ever were to happen. So, I mean, just a little, off topic type of thing, but it's like there's always something that will manifest from teaching our kids, something in the outdoors. So.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I mean, I think the most important thing is, with the next generation of hunters is just make it fun for people. I mean, at the end of the day, fun of being outside, and I don't think it should be so. If you get a kill, that's good. And if it's not the perfect dream, deer, that's okay. I mean, the idea is just being out there and using that time.
Oh, 100%. I agree 100%, Neal. I agree. Well, we've talked about everything, and this all came about hunting. So, this is just another true testament of what we are doing is real, and it's who we are. Neal, you have a very affordable product that's high of quality, and it's made for the backcountry hunter. It is made for the Midwestern whitetail hunter. It is made for the Eastern timber guys. You have something for everyone that's out there, whether it's, you run all the way up to what, 3XL?
Yes, actually 4XL now.
4XL. So there's no excuse. You guys have, in the glove selection is, wow. My mind gets dizzy looking at them all. So I know it's another little funny thing. Is like, I'll talk to Karen. I'm like, hey, I need this glove. And I'm like, it's like, I need a product number. So it's this is true. My birth announcement was a little balloon in the shape of a glove. So
you're a glove man.
Well, it's and it's true. It's like, you guys do have a glove for everyone. Whether you're bow hunting, and I mean, for me, for shooting traditional, I don't use a tab, or I don't use, a glove or anything like that, or a shooter's glove. But I do use your all's glove. I use that just because it's the perfect feel of being on my hand when I shoot traditional archery. So I mean, there's a magnitude of uses, for gloves, besides being waterproof and windproof and for warmth. But I use them for that as well. But you guys have something for everyone, and from what I'm hearing you say is like your innovation and technology is consistently evolving.
Oh, I agree. And I mean, how would I put it? If you don't have a good pair of gloves on, it's not going to be a fun hunt. That's for sure. When your hands get cold, it's miserable. So going to football games as well, I will say. So,
that's why they call you the glove man.
Yeah, the glove man.
Well, I appreciate all the time you guys have given me today. It's been a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, it's been good. I'm glad we could kind of get into some of the science and then off on some tangents too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Neal, what's that?
Oh no, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, what would you kind of have to say to some of our fellow hunters out there that haven't tried Huntworth? What would you encourage them to say?
Oh, try our product. You won't be disappointed. We'll keep you warm, and you'll be able to have some money in the bank.
That's an important part to add right there.
There you go. Money in the bank so they can afford to go out and go hunting, right? I mean,
that's true.
That's what it's all about, so for sure. Neal, it sure has been a pleasure.
Great. Yes, same here. I appreciate all the time. It has been fun. I enjoyed it. And again, I thank guys for all the time you've given me today. I appreciate it greatly.
You betcha.
All right.
You bet,
Take
Neal.
care.
All right, take care.
Okay,
Thanks, Neal.
Thanks, Neal. Hey guys, you can find us over on social media, on IG, on Bone Maniacs. You can find us on Facebook, Bone Maniacs, bonemaniacs.com, and over on Waypoint TV and Taking Aim on Tuesday nights from 8 to 11.